Welcome, everybody, to the Asterisk film update interview. My name is Graham Wilson, and joining me, the green and white writer, the man behind this prolific project, Mr. Paul Larkin. How are you, Paul?
Yes, fantastic, Graham. The dialer regime remains unbeaten, eh? How'd you like them apples?
100% record intact, for whatever that's worth. Fantastic stuff. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to get an update on the film, how it's going, how it's progressing, and then you've also had a lot of explosive revelations coming from your blog as of late, and it's really continued over the past several weeks. Most recently, it was revealed in your blog and elsewhere that you visited Craig White's castle as well. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you've detailed in the Asterisk years, the living quarters, if you will, of one David Murray and some of his close neighbors. Now you're visiting Craig White. Expand a little bit on that and the context behind that.
Well, you know me, I always like to find out and look about where the other half live, Graham. And it's important to remember as well, of course, that Craig White doesn't actually own that house now. In fact, did he actually ever own it? I'm not really sure, because it was bought with a £600,000 mortgage from the Bank of Scotland. Yeah, them again, yeah. Which he then got another £250,000 loan for repairs, got the repairs done, and then stiffed the company that done the repairs. Seemed there was a partner merging already. So yeah, I went to have a wee look about. Craigie was, kind enough to give us the directions and stuff like that.
Lovely.
And, I wanted to have a wee look about Granton and Spey, and also to because we've seen recently, Graham, the fact that the wee story came up there about Dougie McDonald trying to erase his Google history, like we'd all remember the fact that, he gave us a penalty and then took it away.
Right.
And Craig White was probably the first guy I remember, Graham, who actually did get his Google history erased, And so, I wanted to do a wee bit background on that. So the kind of things we were looking at and talking about was, obviously, his name's Craig Thomas White. He was born 18th January 1971. Obviously, his residence was Castle Grant, Granton and Spey, which was the house that I was photographed outside, and La Roque-Fleury in Monaco. He was married in Naples, Florida, Graham, in America, 13th of May 2000. I don't know if you were at the wedding or any of your boys were. Now, one of the interesting things was that I thought and was presumed that he had been kind of resident in Monaco. Now, he's certainly not a British resident. He's not a UK citizen, and he put on his kind of everything and anything that he was a Monaco resident for tax reasons, when in actual fact he spent a lot of time in Costa Rica. In fact, he's got 3 kids, and one of the kids was even born in Costa Rica, and that was something that he managed to get erased for Google. When he was in Granton and Spey, he was going through a divorce and that's nothing to do with me, nothing to do with anybody as far as I'm concerned. And he was often hill walking in the Cairngorms, Graham. Now, I don't know how much you know about the Cairngorms. I didn't really know much about it, but he had a fantastic, for that 600 grand, not only did he get a great castle, he got a phenomenal view. And Cairngorms Park, just to give you an example and an insight, something I didn't know until I only found out last week, Graham, is the fact that Cairngorms Park is actually bigger than Holland.
Wow.
And that was the view wee Craigie had. So, £600,000 goes a long way in the Highlands, Graham. He drove a Bentley, used to drive a Bentley around Granton and Spey.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, we all do, don't we? Registration was 2 treble EC. Don't know what that meant, but it's no longer registered to him because it was seized. So I think that's something he was used to. Liked his holidays in Euro Disney and Stockholm. Stockholm was a bit of a boat hole for him when all the shit was hitting the fan, when he was, in with the good and great at Ibrox and stuff like that. And it was a place where he felt safe. I don't know. I've never been there, so you could maybe tell me. In terms of the house, of course, as I say, the house was built to create an image. He was a billionaire. Right. The wealth was off the radar and all that kind of thing. But the mortgage payments began to stop round about May 2012, which is interesting when you consider the amount of money he was kind of earning at that time.
Yeah.
And so that was round about that time when the kind of our friends across the city sort of started to realise that maybe Craigie wasn't quite as truthful as they might have thought he was. Let's just say that. The Inverness Assistant Chief Constable warned him that his life was in danger, and Craigie, being Craigie, as the man we admire says, "I'm not scared of anybody." Which, by the way, I've got to say, brass balls, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's fucking balls. I mean, when pushed by the policeman, he said that, he maybe, and I'll emphasise the word maybe, not walk around certain parts of Glasgow with his kids. But apart from that, didn't fear anybody. Hats off to you, Craigie. Bigger balls than I've got, that's for sure. Now, what's interesting as well is that when Rangers were going into liquidation, Pritchard Stockbrokers, which was his other company, were also going into liquidation, and that kind of eased out the media, because, at that point, because remember, once the actually new administration was happening, then the whole sort of liquidation's never going to happen phase went on, and we had banners saying, no, you can't liquidate us because that takes our history away. Now, of course, the Rangers fans of that time, what they want to do is take away the history of the liquidation.
Right.
So at that time, of course, and in that period, they had received £28 million for tickets. £28 million, Graham. And they're obviously trying to call that in, as you know. The taxman wants £5.7 million from him. Again, don't know. And his lawyers were, of course, the good old Celtic favourites of Harper McLeod, which I'm sure will find me. So hopefully that gives a wee insight into Craig. And I hope to just dangle this in front of you right now, Graham, and say that after this show, I'm going to drop a blog with another wee insight into Craigie, which I'll just say this, might not look too good for the SFA.
Oof. All right. That's a good tease. I'm looking forward to that. Paul, speaking of your blog, I mean, as I mentioned in the opening, you've dropped just, insight after insight, and it's almost on a daily basis coming fast and furious. And one of the things that's been explosive over the past couple of weeks has been your picture that was lifted, shall we say, and put into the Daily Record. Tell us a bit about this picture, and what were your thoughts on all that developing?
Well, I took a fair bit of abuse for that because people were like, oh, you need to, sue the Record and get money off them and all that kind of thing. Now, whilst I'd never denied talking to tabloid journalists, I'll no name them, but some of them are my friends, that's not a route that I go down, Graham, and I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but I do not do deals with tabloid newspapers. It's as simple as that, I was offered a substantial amount of money for that photograph back in March when I first brought it out. Which I turned down flat, and then I was phoned by the person the accounts department of said newspaper, who was just there to organise the payment. So I had the offer, I knocked it back, and then they were like, well, I've got this, where do I put this money to, and all that kind of thing. It was 4 figures, it was a big sum of money for me, that's for sure. And, where did I was like, I'm not wanting it, that's it.
And they just assumed that it was a done deal, like, eventually you'd come around.
I don't think they assumed it was a done deal, and what I think they did was they thought that if they actually dangled the money in front of me, I would just choke and take it.
Eventually, yeah.
Now, that photograph, which brought out on the 5th of March of this year, had never been disclosed anywhere in public before, and also pretty certain that David Murray never knew it existed. So make of that what you will. The second thing I'd like to say is, having read that, I was made aware of the article by my friend in Larne, Gary Bergen, who did out himself as a Daily Record reader. I have to be said, but we'll come on to that later. And sort of like, all right, here we go. So I was able to get a handle on it. And when I eventually went to a Morrison's supermarket and read the thing, I thought, there's so much fucking rubbish in this article. They never had a clue where the photo was taken, what the context was, or whatever, and they just made all these assumptions.
Yeah.
Now, if they'd listened to this show or any other shows, I could have told them what had happened with that photo, and what it was and all that kind of thing. But of course, the Record being the Record, and Jackson being the PR man that he is, because it was him that lifted the photo, Keith Jackson, even though they put a non de plume in there instead, was that they labelled that as the moment that Rangers died, effectively, the moment that Craig went, which is absolute poppycock, to use an old English term. And therefore, I thought, you know what, it's maybe time to sort of throw a few things out here that maybe just starts to join the dots on a few things, because what was going to happen, Graham, absolutely 100%, was the operation to clear Murray was going to start that day. And it was going to be Craig White, poor David was duped, never knew anything was going on, blah, 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 blah.
Well, and the picture set the tone for that, where, you have, the picture shows David Murray signing paperwork, Craigie standing over him with that goofy grin on his face, or that look with a couple of observers. And, to your point, the context can be just sort of, there could be a lot of conjecture out of that, and made into however they wanted it to be.
Yeah, exactly. And, Craig White, look, I'm not going to deny, Craig White's a spiv. You know what I mean? He's the guy, the Luke and fucking Revere. But this laughable, and as I say, we'll move it into the film where we'll show why it's absolutely laughable to suggest that Murray was duped and all that kind of thing. But that was clear that was going on, so it was me and my sort of partners in this decided that we're not just going to sit back and let this fucking prick, act as though he's fucking, Mahatma Gandhi and, try and erase all that kind of thing, because that's just not what happened, you know what I mean? And I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but lots of things happened leading up to that moment, which was in Charlotte Square. I know the lyrics is believed to be at Murray premises. It was in Charlotte Square. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. And lots of things happened after that. Now, bear in mind, this is the same newspaper who, before that, had said that he had never even met Craig White.
Right.
So that was important, because that was one of the first things that was going to happen after the second verdict of the upper tier tribunal, was that Murray was going to come out and say, you know what, I never even met this guy. It was my fault, yeah, I was phone calls, it was emails, I was delegated and all that kind of thing. And bear in mind that all his underlings, when they were questioned about all this in the future, they would take the Nuremberg fucking rally, the Nuremberg trial fucking route of, I was only obeying my orders. There was no way on earth you could sit here and let Murray put out the lie that he'd never met Craig White, hence the photo.
Absolutely. And that ties in nicely with the film, and speaking of the film, I mean, it sounds as if the Glasgow premiere is under huge demand at the moment. Tickets have gone up, and I believe we're pretty close to selling out, if not completely sold out.
Sold out.
So they're gone. And what's been the progress so far? I mean, I know that you're making great strides to film to finish up the filming of the movie. How's that going?
Yeah, it's gone really well, actually. Today, we put a timescale in place for the completion of the film, which is effectively 2 sort of long days of shooting, voiceover work, and then the edit. The first rushes are coming to me in the next week or so. But then, as I say, we're going, and I'm really, really happy with that, because it really is in the hands of top professionals with huge documentary experience, documentaries that everybody's seen, and it's really reassuring, Graham, because it's it's like anything, as you go into a situation where you kind of think you know what you're doing, and then you realise you really didn't know what you're doing that well, and then the kind of tricks and all that these people do. So to then be able to know that, I mean, that we've got a new crew filming stuff, and producer, editor, and all that kind of thing, that's a huge weight off. That's a huge relief, and that's something I'm really looking forward to, because obviously that's where the film is, and so it's able to, because I mean that. Let me tell you now, there's only one person on the planet that's seen anything other than what's been out there thus far, is the producer and editor. Mm-hmm. I've not seen it, so nobody's seen anything. So, it's kind of like, and then from there, we are actually bringing out another trailer on the 1st of August, which will take a different angle. I'll be in it. There'll be another person in it that the Celtic people will know. And, so that's going fantastic. In terms of the premiere, Graham, that's completely sold out now.
Excellent.
It's gone. And so what we're actually able to do, Graham, and it's something we would discuss, but I'm never, ever want to count chickens in anything, just that's my shrink. But listen, the following day, what we're going to do is, in the same venue, is we're going to have a kind of charity screening in it. Now, what this will entail, Graham, is simply, it'll be £10 a ticket, that's all. We're nominating 2 charities, one of which has already been nominated, which is Shelter Scotland, and I'll tell you right now why the reason Shelter Scotland are going to benefit is because Richard Swan, as I've mentioned numerous occasions, has been a colossus in this whole project. And Richard Swan, as you well know, is the last guy in the world to take plaudits or gifts or money even, you know what I mean, for what he does.
Sure.
So I kind of sat and thought, how on earth do I reward it? Because he's, if you try to give him anything, nah. I actually gave him when he done the audiobook, I got a sort of special tankard made, and sort of engraved and all that kind of thing, and thank you and all that kind of thing. He's absolutely mortified. You know what I mean? Oh no, I'm just a mate, doing a mate a favour, anything for the Celtic, that kind of,
That's Richard.
For Christ's sake. So I said to him, Richard, what's your favourite charity? as he'll tell you, without missing a beat, boom, Shelter Scotland. I says, right, perfect. So what we do on the 16th of November, Graham, 2 o'clock, same venue as the premiere in Glasgow. We I've got to have a charity screening, and what we're going to do is just basically come in, watch the film, pay a tenner, go out, and then we'll give donations to Shelter Scotland and another charity that I was talking to a friend of mine, Joe, about, which I'll reveal towards, of course. It's for twofold, Graham. For people that maybe can't afford to come to the premiere or didn't want to go to that kind of grandiose event type thing, fine, that's no bother. Much cheaper price. And secondly, to kind of, pay it forward, if you like,
sure.
to let people benefit and all that kind of thing. Because obviously we want as many people to see the film as well. I mean, that's our end. That's what we get at, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I hope that the 200 people that are at the premiere have all tweeted, oh, for fuck's sake, this is pish, didn't bother go and see it the night before. Or hopefully we'll all sold the tickets by then. But that's another story. But, we'll charge a tenner, boom, and we'll make donations and that, and we'll pay it forward and stuff like that. So, yeah, things have gone really well. Right. We're in negotiations. I'm away to a location tomorrow to talk to someone regarding a screening in a big capital city, so that's really exciting. And there's wee sort of feelers out there with people are saying, yeah, maybe we could do something and so on and so forth. So therefore, things have gone well on that score. But I genuinely think, Graham, we're only scratching the surface on this.
Well, and I think that, the evidence in terms of that point is present from, what you've just been able to uncover almost on a daily basis. I mean, there's stuff coming out fast and furious, and you mentioned that, you're going to be releasing a blog here shortly. That's really going to blow the lid off of a lot of things. Let's talk about the EBT tax case element for a second. I mean, a lot of people, and it always seems to come back to one R. Campbell Ogilvy, as sort of the person that takes on, most of the responsibility and the blame. Tell us, I mean, who ran the EBT scheme and what actually happened there?
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot of sterling work going on regarding Ogilvy and his involvement with the likes of Alteed and people like that. And I would urge people to go to their Scottish People Monitor, have a look at the stuff that they're hanging. And Ogilvy, I mean, it's one of the things where it's like, okay, we're administrating this scheme and we have the best administrator in Scotland. Do you think he was involved? I mean, well, maybe. So, yeah, definitely. Campbell Ogilvy knew about it. Campbell Ogilvy was the buffer between the players and the scheme. But Campbell Ogilvy never actually ran the tax at Rangers, and that's the key thing to remember here. And so one of the things I uncovered was that in February 2011, David Murray himself, bend at the knee, everyone, mentioning his name, put out an invitation to tender for the tax audit and compliance function at Rangers Football Club. Now, to me, I don't know about you, that's like me saying, does anybody want to take my murder charge on? Do you know what I mean? So he put that out there so people could bearing in mind, he knew what had been coming down the line because they knew for 2009, I'll come on to that in a bit, they knew for 2009 they were getting him. So then it was revealed, these documents revealed categorically who actually ran the EBT and also was in contact with HMRC. Now, people can decide as the evidence rolls out and they can make their own choice. Did this guy... Was he truthful with HMRC? Did he reveal all the information to HMRC? Did he divulge everything that he should have to HMRC? I don't know. You make your choice. But the guy that was running it, and it was a guy who was an employee there from March 1993 to August 2011, is a guy called Ian McMillan. And he reported to Murray and to the directors continually through the whole, deploying it, if you like. So that's a guy. Now, what's interesting about that, Graham, is, of course, as I said before, that the directors, etc., and all that kind of thing went down the Nuremberg route when questioned about this, and sat there. Oh no, I was only being orders. I never knew anything was going on. Ian McMillan knew what was going on. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So the timeline's important here, right? Because the first admittance by Rangers Football Club that they were being investigated for this was on the 27th of April 2010. Now, HMRC had been in contact with AIM and the SPL as far back as 2009. Right? Now, what's important about that is that it was only in the 1st of March 2012 that Eric Riley found this out. Eric Riley of Celtic, the finance director,
right,
and questioned Rod McKenzie at an SPL meeting. What the hell's going on here?
Right.
Why didn't you tell us that they were under investigation, and why didn't you tell us that HMRC had requested the documents relating to the side letters of which we didn't know anything about in the first place? back in 2009. Because I'm telling you now, Graham, for whatever way you want to go down, whatever tunnel you want to go down the Alice in Wonderland route if you like. But I'm telling you right now, if it was known in 2000, it's early 2009, that this was going on with Rangers Football Club, there is absolutely no way on earth they would have won the league in the 09, 10 and 11.
Well, and in addition to that, they didn't tell anybody. I mean, as is evidenced by, Eric Riley and all this. I mean, Celtic was kept in the dark, as is everybody.
So fast forward to 28th of February 2013, and Rangers are found guilty of not disclosing payments and all that kind of thing. And of course, they're deemed not to have a sporting advantage. Now, the thing about that is absolutely staggering, because as you say, the SPL deliberately withheld the information for the rest of the SPL clubs, knowing full well that the second biggest club in the country was under investigation by HMRC.
Right.
That's staggering. Now, of course, it started to come out in the papers probably January, and it was probably January, February that Rangers made the offer to HMRC, say, we'll give 10 million to basically close the deal, and they said absolutely not. But the public admittance did they come to the 27th of April 2010, which is unbelievable. But as I say, the most important thing is that's at least 15 months to when the SPL knew. And that's absolutely staggering. And as I say, Eric Riley, now, look, I know a lot of people think Celtic was in on this and blah, 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 they knew all the time and that kind of thing. Eric Riley exploded at that meeting, right? Now, do I think that Celtic were completely wrong to no speak out on the sheeting? Absolutely, 100%. I think that's the fundamental reason why your stadium's no full right now. But were Celtic in on this or did they know about it? No, they never. No, they never. Now, the question, of course, is, with the EBTs and so on, we know the advantages they got. And because Nimmo Smith said they didn't get a sporting advantage, it doesn't mean they didn't get a sporting advantage, because we know that's exactly why they done it, was to get a sporting advantage.
Exactly.
And if these things are now deemed legal in that sense, or HMRC couldn't actually close the deal on the whole thing, then why on earth did Celtic give the taxman £600,000 regarding Juninho's EBT? And in fact, are we now due that back from HMRC?
I think that would be reasonable. I think that would be expected, absolutely.
I mean, this is staggering. I mean, this is cheating on a scale unprecedented in Scottish football that was covered up by like-minded individuals within the higher echelons, the SFA and the SPL, including Ant Campbell Ogilvie, who at the very least, Graham, should have been put on gardening leave, when the investigation happened. But we know that he told Reagan and about anything to do with it. I wasn't involved in letters. Utter rubbish. We've all seen the letters. We've put them out there. Everything's out there. He was there. He was at the first meeting. He had helped administer it, and he was there right at the death when the investigation was on. And then he turned around and said, "Well, as an administrator, I didn't administrate anything. Come on to fuck, I go over." And if you didn't, and if HMRC are saying now they're all loans, who's going to pay them back? All these people that got an EBT, including Walter Smith, who managed to get his name out of the investigation, but was given one, a huge one, and helped pay for a house in 3rd Avenue in Manhattan with it. When are they going to pay it back? When Billy Dodd's going to pay his EBT back? When's Nacho Novo going to pay his EBT back? He's standing there with his son's truth today asking where the money went. I'll tell you where it went, Nacho, in your pocket. But, where are they going to pay it back? That's the way it works, Graham. You're either guilty or they're loans and you pay them back.
Well, and there's so many sort of tangled elements to this and sort of frayed elements, I guess, where, you think about, and to your point, I mean, there's no accountability with this whatsoever. I mean, it's just allowed to happen. You think, well, if that's the case and if this is going to be allowed or ignored or whatever, then, surely it's open season for everybody. But, the key component in this is, if it was another club that had this, would they have the helping hands of the establishment, of the SFA, et cetera, to make this happen and to facilitate, the sweeping? And, I mean, the consensus, of course, would be, the consensus response would be absolutely not. This is special, considerations paid for because that this club was what the club was. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's staggering, and it's... The fundamental of it all, Graham, is they all think that we are stupid. That's it.
Because, as I try to point out in the realms of the Edinburgh establishment, and it extends right out of the world, rich, powerful fucking people think everybody else is stupid. right? And you know what? See, as a collective, we probably are, as a mass, as the masses, we probably are, because if we weren't, we'd be overthrown these fucking horrible governments and all that kind of thing. But they move on. But as individuals, and there's loads of them out there, we see them every single day, they're very shrewd, they're very intelligent, and they're getting closer and closer and closer to the truth.
Paul, the single most powerful weapon that the masses have is information, and you're doing such great work in terms of getting that information out so that people are aware, and then so that people can start to ask the questions that are going to hold people accountable and make the situation untenable for the cover-up, etc. One of the blogs that you released this week, Project Charlotte, and Charlotte, I mean, you constantly hear this name Charlotte. I mean, you can almost put it up on a marquee. It's almost
I've actually often wondered if, like, imagine if I started chatting up a girl and what's the name, Charlotte? For fuck's sake, you know what I mean? I'd love to get all these wee messages for Charlotte,
That's
but
me away.
No, flash up on the phone, Charlotte. No, well, that was again sort of the reason that I put these not the reason, but what I put these stuff out, not for me to tell you the answers, but for you to decide what you think. So there was documents of Project Charlotte. I wonder where they found that name for, and detailing whose roles and responsibilities would have for the liquidation of Rangers Football Club.
And this is months. This is months in advance.
Yes. Now, bear in mind, we spoke about before, everybody talks about every day. Craigie is on the media all the time saying everything's fine, no problem. What are you worried about? Meanwhile, here's the plan. And here's Duff and Phelps under the guys MCR. They're the ones that are going to be doing this and going to be doing that and about all these, this, that and the other. Yet, as we all know, everybody listening knows, Craigie had to go to the Court of Session in Edinburgh to get Duff and Phelps appointed in February 2012. So why are they producing documents or party documents in September 2011? And also, as you touched on, the next blog that came out that showed the projected cash figures done by Duff and Phelps, which basically showed there'd be an £8 million shortfall, which meant the company should have been liquidated immediately, but wasn't. Now, the two questions out of that, Graham, is simple. One, why are Duff and Phelps doing that when Craigie had to go to the Scottish Session in February 2012 to get them appointed? That doesn't make sense. And secondly, how many people were stiffed for much more than they should have been because they never told anybody?
That's it.
The face painters and the news agents who Rangers just continually ran credit up and continually took stuff and goods and services from them and telling them that everything was fine, who then go to the war because these rich, powerful people just told them lies. But yet, Graham, we're supposed to sit here and say, no, well, we're blameless.
And that's, I mean, if I'm a creditor or even a shareholder, and I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing that I was lied to, I mean, I'm furious. I mean, let's call it what it is. That's fraud. I mean, you're projecting a financial entity to be something that it's patently and clearly not to be. And there's a knock-on effect. I mean, those creditors, they take on all sorts of debts, and then, to Rangers with the full expectation that they're going to get paid back when everybody knows that was never going to happen. They then, you run your business on credit, and you can take out credit on the accounts receivable that was never going to get paid. So then the people that they owe money to, they lose out on that. I mean, there's a knock on that filters throughout the system, and there's zero accountability. It's absolutely it's infuriating.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely staggering. And again, bear in mind, right, unlocking these documents. I've never been party to a press conference at Ibrox. I've never been party to a wee private chit chat with Craig White at Ibrox or anybody at Ibrox or anything like that. But plenty of people have been. Plenty of journalists have been in that situation. And what do they uncover? Jack shit. Or do they uncover it and just kind of bury it? Because it was going on, and it's going on, and it was going on then. And as I say, big businesses, everybody losing money is a disgrace. But the ones to really feel sorry for are the news agents and the ambulance services and the face painters or the little guys. Because in this thing, all the time, Graham, it's always the little guy that gets fucked. Always. Yep. You know what I mean? Look at the trail of destruction that this man Craig White's left. I've already mentioned the House and all these businesses and all that kind of thing. And the banks get stiffed, and even the fucking people doing the repairs of these houses get stiffed. Does it bother him? Does it fuck? There he is, he's still swanning around the world. He's at the Prince concert in London, he's at the after-show party, he's in various exclusive clubs in London, and we'll say name here or not, you can take what you want for the word exclusive. He's in all these holiday destinations all around the world, and he couldn't give a monkey's chuff about what's happened there, or any of them. None of them could.
Massive amounts of information that you're bringing us, Paul, and this is the information that the establishment and the principals at play here never wanted us to see, and it's seeing the light of day. And I'm telling you, it's really going to be an awakening. Stay with us, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there's going to be more revelations. We're going to hear more about the film, more about what's coming down the pike. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Asterisk Sears film update interview. My name is Graham Wilson, and so much explosive revelations coming out today from the Green and White writer, Paul Arkin. Paul, thank you so much again for joining us today.
Pleasure.
David Murray, we talk about the victimhood that's sort of developing, over these past days, and sort of bouncing off of tax case judgments, et cetera. But I mean, as you've very astutely and comprehensively documented with the Asterisk Gears project, just generally, David Murray, the architect of all of this, but he cannot escape blame for all of this, can he?
No, I mean, Graham, Jack Cousteau couldn't get so low. I mean, honest to God, this is a guy, 37 guilty counts on the tax cases, guilty of illegal side letters, over 200 creditors stiffed, gone. Murray International Holdings pension fund ripped off, and the UK taxpayer had to swallow his debt of £1 billion. Now, you tell me, Graham, is he to blame, or is it somebody else?
That's quite a CV for a man that likes to put "sir" in front of his name. Unbelievable.
Exactly, quite a CV for a man knighted for services to business. Not quite sure what business they were services to, but there you go.
Monkey business.
I mean, as I said before, the Asterisk Gears project was all about making sure people never ever forgot who was to blame for all sorts. Now, as Celtic supporters, we actually care about the football, right? And what I care about, and why I'll never shut up about it until I'm through with this project, is that I watched my team almost go to the grubber in the 90s because we assumed we were up against an invincible enemy who everything he touched turned to gold and that kind of thing. And we find out that it was all complete and utter bollocks, and it was done by cheating. Because remember, one of the tag phrases of the Asterisk Gears, and it's important people remember this week especially, is that EBTs were just a side issue, The real cheating happened in the banks, in the driveways, leafy suburbs of Edinburgh, and the like-minded individuals who plotted to kill our club and put Rangers to the top of European football, however long it took and for however much money they needed to spend, they were going to do it.
Yeah.
We were warned continuously through it. For every fiver they spend, I'll spend a tenner, all this kind of thing.
Right.
Pigs will fly if there's a new Celtic Park. And my favourite phrase, of course, as long as I hear Glenn Daly singing at Celtic Park, I know we'll always be on top. Well, David, he's still singing and you're fucking gone. So... and it's staggering, but that's the kind of hold that the man has over elements of Scottish society. Now, clearly that grip's been loosened, and he's certainly got no hold over the likes of me, you, or probably anybody listening to this thing, which is fantastic.
Yep.
But people. Somebody said to me about 2 weeks ago, I think it was on Twitter, one of these good people who wear blue shirts said to me, "Oh, you're just obsessed with David Murray." And I said, "Well, I am actually a wee bit, because kind of like he tried to destroy everything that I loved. So, I didn't really like that,
Absolutely.
I mean, as somebody once said, he made my life a fairy tale, grim, So it was like somebody has to fight back, and it's obviously not just me. There's two people, but like. People needed to be aware of the fact that this was the guy, this was the dictator, this was the Kim Jong-il, you know what I mean? He was nothing else. And by the way, I find it staggering. I saw something mentioned this today, that, with Tam Cowan's comments regarding, him, he was 100% right.
Yeah.
100% right. You've got all these Scottish journalists who all were retweeting, "Oh, North Korea say they've won the World Cup." You say Rangers are still the same club.
We're supposed to believe that somehow they magically got relegated to Scotland's third division.
Aye, it's staggering, and it takes a comedian like Tam Cowan to mention that, and I'm not a fan of Tam Cowan or whatever, but like I didn't see, the thing is, for me, Graham, is I didn't see that as being like a noble stance or anything like that. That's just reality.
Exactly. And
people need to get into reality, and we need to stop. And I've had people today say to me, "Oh, when's this stuff going to be in the press now?" It's like, why do you need the press? Why do you need to read something in the Sun or the Daily Record before you'll believe it? You know what I mean? You're being conditioned by these morons. It's the same way that we were led down the garden path for years when Murray was running riot over us.
And all the while they lied to us.
Yeah. It's like, they're PR men and always will be.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. Keith Jackson The sports editor, the sports editor of the biggest paper in Scotland is a PR man. That's all he is.
Nothing more.
How many people have led him down the garden path? Almost as many as Chris Graham. It's just the way it goes, you know.
Yeah.
But people still need Dean to write about something before they'll actually believe it. That's when you know Keith Jackson's not the problem. It's actually your own mindset, and what we need to change is our mindset. I said before, I wrote a book 2011, Doogie Doogie. It wasn't that great a book, but one message in it was fantastic, which was we become the media, and that's what needs to happen. New media has been sort of bombarded with new stuff and all that kind of thing, but the sterling work that people like Altheed and all that are doing is incredible, and they wouldn't be out there if it wasn't for people who didn't buy into the Daily Record and the Sun's shite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we need to keep that going, and we need to keep sort of pushing and pushing and pushing. And I know it's like some people can take it to obsessive levels, and I never think that works. But at the same time, I'll never castigate anybody for that, because they're probably the same age as me, they probably suffered the same amount as me, they're probably ridiculed as much as me, and probably like everybody listening to this thinks, oh, I remember the 90s. I remember when we were told it was all our old board's fault and Murray was this, that, and next thing and all that. And you know what? I'm pretty pissed off by it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's why we've got to keep our foot on their throat as much as we can, because they were ready to kill us. They were ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Let's see them try that now.
Yeah, talk about a compromised position. Speaking of a diluted sense of reality and an elevated sense of victimhood, Ali McCoist, he seems to be the perennial woe is me, and everybody's out to sort of get him, and it almost seems as if it's like this kabuki theater deflection to take away from any sort of accountability that he has. And you had some interesting and some quite informative revelations regarding Ali McCoist and some of his involvement. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, again, I mean, this week we had to endure, Super Ali in the press giving it the big I am and the big we're not guilty and this and all this kind of thing. And I just thought, we'll sit here and think we're not going to let this arsehole go around and pretend to be, the Archangel Gabriel and everything, this kind of thing. It's like, let's just remind people of what he's like. Now, bear in mind, this is a man, as I revealed a couple of months ago, when the IPO, institutional investors, came down the line to Sevco, Ali's wages at that time were £600,000. The first thing he did, the day that money came in, went to Charles Green and said, right, I want my money put back up to the 750. So that was the thing. Ali, and when they were selling the deal, and the news was going to be public, Ali done a very shrewd thing, which was he made it look as though he was only getting about 300 grand, because he had managed to get a thing where it was only 6 months' salary they were talking about, not a year. So Rangers fans, thought that, that's Ali was like, the assistant manager salary. No. It was bumped up, because Ali, as we all know, was the PR man for Sevco. He was the guy who enabled Charles Green to sell season tickets for a new football club. Let's not ever forget that. Simple as that.
But all the while, he was going to get his full wages.
Oh, of course. That's why he was being paid so much. Highest paid manager in Scotland. So let's not forget that. And no matter how many times you try to distance yourself from Charles Green, let's not forget there would be no such thing as Charles Green if it wasn't for Ali McCoist. Secondly, this fucking holier than thou act that he keeps trying to put, the cheeky chappy nonsense, laid it on for me. Promise the Salvation Army, sing on a record with them, blah, 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 can't influence the players, they boot the recording studio, they turn up for it, and Ali doesn't bother to turn up.
No surrender, Ali.
Aye, there you go. Aye, fuck the homeless. I've got something else to do. That's the thing.
Great.
And, of course, Ali's big mouth, which has been annoying every Celtic fan in the world. It's like, well, you know what? Just remember, every time he opens that big mouth, remember the fact that his stupid complaining about Parksy Hamilton's buses and the need for Wi-Fi on the bus and for a PlayStation on the bus cost them £5 million of investment from a die-hard Rangers family who had supported the old co for 41 years and were ready to jump in full feet to Sevco. Nah, Ali couldn't have it. Mouth, and Ali. So, it was just a case of, Ali, every time you fucking open your mouth, we'll just keep telling you and showing people how much a hypocrite you actually are.
Unbelievable. Paul, this has been, and it just keeps coming. And we're so grateful for, what you're bringing us, the information. And like I said, this is the weapon that we need to fight back and to resist and to refuse to accept the lies and the propaganda that were being delivered. So, I speak on behalf of everybody and saying thank you, and keep up the fight to bring this to light, because the truth in the end will set this whole debacle free and free the minds of a lot of people.
Let's hope so.
Absolutely. Before we go, any message to the listeners and to everybody that's behind you with this film premiere and with the project that you're working on right now?
Well, as I said, there's been a lot of people with me, including yourself, right from the get-go, and I cannot thank them enough. I mean, without them, I'm nothing. End of chat. Secondly, as I said, we're having a charity screening of the Asterisk skiers. It'll be on Sunday, 16th of November, 2 p.m. A lot of people have mentioned to us already, we're like, well, I'll buy tickets for somebody else in groups and whatever. That's fantastic. It'll be £10 a ticket, and it'll be Shelter Scotland will benefit, and another charity will announce closer to the time will benefit. I spoke to my mate Joe about just today. So yeah, we want to make that good, and we'll hopefully have a fantastic weekend that weekend. Do you know what I mean? With the premiere and then the charity screening, and people who support that would be fantastic. The tickets will go on sale for that on August the 1st, just when we release the second trailer, Graham. And I just want to thank everybody who's gives me, everybody knows I didn't want to talk about the abuse I get. All corners of the kingdom is like, staggering at times, and it can really get you doing. But then, people, the James Wallaces of this world, and the Connor Fallons, and the Sam McLeods, and all these kind of people just come and remember how special they are. And what I'd say to them, and to everybody listening, and everybody who supported that, we're in the last lap now. This is the final hurdle, and we just need to make one more leap.